less thing to worry about. It's exciting stuff. All right, so we are here to learn about Chartmasters. Let's talk a bit about Chartmasters. So we have an hour and a half together. Our request a few days ago were to spend some time working on Chartmasters and also some time working on scripts. So I will do my best to keep an eye on the clock. My intention is at 2:15 to transition over into the discussion on scripts, and we'll start a separate video. Meanwhile, all of the videos that we have done that I have recorded are up on YouTube. There are, I think, one morning I forgot to hit the button, but pretty much everything else is up there. So I apologize for that. So if you ever go back to the YouTube channel, you have some questions on something that I've posted, let me know immediately. Okay. That reminds me to do one more thing. Okay. Each week, we are now being sent. So let's back up and talk about Chartmasters from the 30,000 foot view for a second. Okay. Chartmasters is a company that is owned by a gentleman whose wife was a longtime agent out of the Sandy Springs office. He was a longtime IBM computer guy. I don't know all the details. His name is Chuck Carr, and he creates Chartmasters. He has signed an exclusive with the local, I guess with the region, that no one else can, no other brokerage has access to this material. Okay. It is available. Each of the Keller Williams offices has the opportunity to purchase the reports. And there's some additional reports like in-town properties or condos and townhomes that are not necessarily part of the subscription, but a market center has the ability to pay for those on top. So please understand that your market center has chosen to invest in this for you. Okay. I mean, we charge you for it. Let's be, clear on that. But it is something that the leadership did not have to partake in, and we believe puts you at an advantage over not only other brokerages, but other Keller Williams brokerages that might not have it. Make sense?
Yeah.
So anytime you see one of the people on leadership, pat them on the back in the future and say thank you. Okay. Now, Chartmasters, historically, I've been seeing this data since around 2009 or so. I'm not sure, honestly, if it was done prior to that. But I've been watching these reports. I don't know if anyone saw that. If you're friends with Ryan Ward on Facebook, he posted a picture of him giving a report summary from 2010 yesterday. It's hilarious. But we've been watching these reports for the last 10, 11 years. And you can go back and access these old reports too if you ever have any curiosity. And if you think that having a home on the market average for 39 days is bad, oh my gosh, you weren't around 10 years ago when it was like 220 days. Typically every quarter, this material is put out. It is available on the internet. You can download it at your leisure. It is available in both a PDF format or a PowerPoint format. And typically there's a handful of slides that are editable based on area and based on price range. So if you need to edit them, we're not going to go into that today, but if you need to edit them, you can use the PowerPoint version. Okay. If there's a buyer presentation, listing presentation, there's in town, there's condo and townhome, there's a lot of different reports. And they also have some pre-listing material in there too. I do not recommend that you print out the buyer presentation, all 80 pages of it, and expect a buyer to sit through the explanation of every page, okay, or a seller. I think that these are designed, number one, to help you become the economist of choice, and secondly, for you to share the most telling slides when they're convenient, right? So I'd probably pull out, I don't know, maybe 5 or 7 slides or so to talk about Keller Williams, maybe to talk a little bit about the market in general, or where are the trends? Are listings going up, down, sales price going up, down? I might have a slide or two about what happens when you overprice a property, and I might have a slide or two about the initial interest when you list a property is significantly higher than after the first 3 or 4 weeks of it being on the market. So I might have that slide handy in case the seller says, hey, well, why don't we try that 325, and if it doesn't work after 2 weeks, we'll lower the price to 300. And you're like, I hear that. That's a common comment. However, do you mind if I share something with you that concerns me about that? Right. So, by the way, that's a nice script, right? Acknowledge what they said, let them know that that's not unusual, right? And then say, would you mind if I gave you another angle to review this with? Or would you mind if I shared a concern with you about that idea, right? It's a very gentle way of saying, I don't really agree with you, and I'm about to tell you why. Make sense?
Yep.
Because the second you get into a fight with your client or your prospective client, it's probably not going to end well. And when I mean end well, I mean you walk out of there with paperwork signed. Okay. So now that the pandemic, and every month we get something called the MMO, the monthly market overview. So that is essentially a review of what's been going on in the market statistical wise, and they look at month over month and year over year and quarter over quarter for a handful of the most important slides that give you a real good summary of what's going on in the marketplace. And those are available by condos and townhomes and single family properties. There's also some information in the packet. A lot of stuff is separated by area. The areas are FMLS areas. So if you're unfamiliar with the FMLS areas, you could probably find a map on FMLS.com, or at very least you could Google FMLS area map Atlanta and it'll pop up. So you can know, for example, what's the difference between area 13 and area 14. Area 13, for example, is primarily made up of Roswell. That's everything in North Fulton County, north of the river, but still in Fulton County, and west of 400. Area 14 is mostly parts of Alpharetta, Johns Creek, and that is everything in North Fulton County, north of the river, still in Fulton County, yet east of 400, right? So when you're listing property or you're helping buyers search for property, you want to have an awareness of these FMLS areas. And you can also, obviously, that's one way you can search. You can also search by school districts, neighborhoods, zip codes, all that kind of thing. Okay. The majority of these slides are broken down into either areas or areas by price range. So what's going on in the market at, let's say, 600,000 is going to be different than what's going on in the market at 150. Okay. Shout out if you have any questions at all during any of this. So now during the coronavirus pandemic, we have, he is basically sending weekly reports. So number one, that's a great real estate partner to have, right? I know that Chuck, I assume he's still doing this. I know there's a couple of agents in our office that pay Chuck monthly to create custom reports for them based on something that they analyze every month in the market. I don't know how much that costs, but I know Joanne Curtin's one of them. So she'll say, I want you to create this report for me, and then she just pays them a one-off fee. Okay, so if you have a curiosity about that, you can reach him directly. You can email him. Okay, let's move into, any questions so far?
What's Chuck's name?
Chuck Carr, C-A-R-R.
Thank you. Got it.
And I will give you his email address now, if you promise not to judge him for having an AOL email address.
I have a couple of clients with AOL.
Yeah.
And one is a 36-year-old guy. So it's just that's just shocking. One is a 66-year-old female, and one's a 36-year-old guy.
It's a surprise, yeah.
It's a Chartmaster Chuck at AOL.
Chartmaster Chuck.
Yeah. Just as a quick side note, make sure you have a professional email address.
He sounds like he's with Def Jam Records.
Yeah, it's like Def Jam Records 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Chartmaster Chuck.
Like,
But you know what?
Clean it
People
up.
who have,
Really.
I hope none of y'all have Yahoo email addresses for your professional. I still have one. I never look at it. Like once every 2 months, I'll look at it. But yeah, when I'm co-oping with an agent who has a Yahoo email address, it's just weird. It's weird. Gmail is one thing. I like Gmail because that's what we have. But
yeah,
I'm sorry. I hope not. I hope I didn't offend anybody. If I did, go get your KW or your Gmail account.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, we're good.
Okay, so here is the weekly report that was just sent out a couple days ago. Does anyone have any generalized questions about Chartmasters before I start reviewing this? So I've only looked at this for about 15 minutes, so I'm obviously able to describe what I see here, but I want to make sure that you guys get an opportunity to interact with me as well. This was sent out by Lucy, I think, day before yesterday. Okay. What kind of generalized questions do we have around Chartmasters right now?
If you could just go through, I know there's 28 slides. I didn't go through all of them, but
Yeah. Let's do that.
If you could kind of speak to the more important ones and how we might use those in our presentations, especially if she's going to be sending this out to us weekly. That's amazing, and
Cool.
So much less work we don't have to do.
100%. All right, so let's start. All right, can you guys see everything here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is the gray bar is 2019. The red bars are 2020. So they're analyzing by week. So we're basically saying that coronavirus probably started to potentially have an impact on our market beginning of March. Okay, so I think we officially went in. When did we shut down the office? I think it was second week in March. Is that right?
Well, 3/16, it was still open. It was sometime during that week. Monday the 16th, it was still open, but it shut down right after that.
Okay, so if that helps you kind of make sense of these graphs timing wise, then that's roughly when the market center shut down. And then I think we went into quarantine, like lockdown, beginning of, was it the last week in March? Right around here?
I was thinking it was the second, like the 3/22, 3/23.
Okay, yeah, you might be right. All right, so I think of the last time I was in the office, I was just looking, I was around March 20th, if I remember correctly. Okay, so we're gonna look at week by week. So what I see here, these first 2 weeks of March, is that the market was actually, the number of closings was actually higher year to date. See that? So the red was higher here in this first week, red was higher here in this second week, and every week since then, year over year, is lower. So that's when we really start seeing the virus's impact here, right? So you can see it's a little lower, then a little bit more lower, then a little bit more lower, and then
wow,
looks like there was a blip that first week in April both years, interestingly enough, right? And then it popped back up the following week. Hang on. If anyone can, April 3rd was the shelter in place order. Thank you. If somebody can watch the chats and just let me know if we have any questions that pop up. I've got like six screens open. Okay, and then you can see that now, look at this. These last 2 weeks, significantly lower number of closings than in the previous years. See that? These are detached residences. So remember what we talked about earlier today is that even though there may be less closings, that doesn't mean that people don't still have very strong motivations and don't need to buy homes or need to sell homes. I tried to sell my home for almost a freaking year in the middle of a pretty good market. As soon as we have a lockdown, I go under contract. So
I went under contract on a property I had for sale for over a year today, so I'm excited. But
Good job.
are these for our area 13 and 14? Or are these the Atlanta market in general?
This
You
is
know?
the Atlanta market in general.
And
Okay.
then I have a question, Bill. The commentary that's on the side, is that stuff that Chuck adds in, or is that
Yes.
something? Okay.
Yeah, so new listings, year-over-year comparison, some fallout shown after mid-March. Lagged posting of status changes will increase these snapshot numbers somewhat. Okay, so really these deals that closed went under contract a month before,
Right.
most likely, right? Okay, so I'll touch on those numbers as well. That's single family detached.
No.
What does new closed listings precisely mean? It's a listing that just got binded?
Are you asking what's the difference between closed listings and new closed listings?
No, the title says new closed listing. So how do you define that?
What is that defined as?
See right here at the top. You're going down too far. You see?
Yeah, I
the
see that.
graph?
I'm just,
Okay.
I guess my question is
What
do you
is
think
that?
that's insinuating there's a difference between closed listings and new closed listings? Like, why is it necessary to write the word new?
He
I don't
just
understand
wants to know what that constitutes, what closed
Right, what does it
listings.
mean?
Those are the
What's
ones
new?
where people have gone to the attorney and it's a done deal. Somebody can move into the house now.
So they've already
all
been
closed.
recorded.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what
Whoa, I think we're getting. So I guess I understand what Michael's saying. My question is do you think that there is a difference between, and I don't know if I know the answer to this. Do you think there's a difference between new closed listings and closed listings? Like, why is it necessary for him to write the word new there?
I don't know. That's
So my thought is that these are just the listings that closed, that finalized, right, like a normal closing during the course of that week.
You mean they actually had a closing, not like it's a listing that just got binded and posted on FMLS.
That's correct, because that's a new listing or a pending contract. These are closed.
These are closed.
Yeah,
Got it.
new closed listings.
New closed listings.
So
Okay.
these are, now I think it's probably fair to say I'm going to make a few assumptions here, but I'm assuming this is new listings on the market, right? This is not, well, never mind. That's obvious. Sorry. Okay. So the takeaway here is that the new closed listings, or the new listings, the homes that are actually selling, are dramatically falling essentially since the shelter in place. Okay. And I would venture to say we might see this in a slide later. You see the gap here and the gap here and how big the gap is here and here. That probably means they lost some contracts, right? Because you would expect it to be more like up here or up here, right? So there's probably some fallout from buyers that just said, I ain't doing this, right?
Correct.
When did we start putting the COVID stip in the contracts? Was that like mid-March?
Yeah, because I had a contract on March the 22nd, and it was in there.
Okay. So that means that a lot of times these buyers weren't even losing their earnest money. So they just got cold feet and they said, see you later.
Yep.
Okay. New active listings. Okay. These are all the same time frame. So we start the first week in March and we end the week that ended 4 days ago. Okay. So we can see that the number of listings prior to really the beginning of COVID was already a bit below what it was in 2019, right? Then it looked like the spring market really popped in 2019, the third week in March, and it basically stayed exactly the same in 2020. Now, what I see here is that this is showing me that there's not actually a decline in the number of listings that are popping up in the market. Is that fair to say? I mean, look at those red bars. They're almost exactly the same across the board. Right? They're off by 10% plus or minus, right?
I
So
would be curious to know what happened during that time when there was such a significant spike.
Yeah,
in
it's interesting.
2019, because that is really big.
Right. So yeah, I'm kind of curious too. I don't know. I mean, it could be anything. I mean, like it could have rained a ton the year before, or the week before, and then all of a sudden, the photographer could get out,
Right.
and the weather was nice, and so you had a ton of listings that hit the market that day or that week.
Yeah.
So what this is telling me is that coronavirus doesn't seem to be slowing down the number of people that decide to sell their home. Yet in every category except for this week, and I think it's close enough just to be a wash, it's less than it was in 2020. Now, so what that's telling us is that if we thought we had low inventory before, we got even lower inventory now. So it's kind of this very interesting kind of blip market, if you will, because in normal situations, the buyers would be competing for the same number of buyers most likely would be competing for a smaller number of listings, which would encourage multiple offers and higher list price to sales price ratios. And here, what we're seeing is that the inventory is even, and then the buyer you could say the exact opposite, which is, oh my gosh, everyone's freaked out about coronavirus. No one's looking at homes. I'll just lowball some sellers and see if I can't get one to agree with me. So every situation is very different. Got it? And by the way, what's going on in West Cobb may be completely different than what's going on in Cumming, and likely is. Okay, new withdrawn listings. I don't think this slide is overwhelmingly telling. Okay, very near those of last year. We have a little that's pretty much steady. I mean, this is pretty incredible how close these are. And then you start to actually see fewer withdrawn listings. It's kind of interesting.
It is interesting, yeah.
So I would say that maybe coronavirus isn't having quite as of an impact as you would notice, right? Since we've been posting all that daily and weekly and 3-day and 7-day activity, the numbers haven't been that different over the last couple weeks, right? So here we see new pendings plus AUC. This is active under contract. That's that new status that FMLS has. Active under contract is if there is a due diligence period, it stays at that status, assuming the agent puts it in correctly. It stays at that status during the due diligence period. Then when the due diligence period ends, it goes to pending. So we see a little bit of decline since the very beginning of March. All of it's less than the year before, right? But a little bit of a decline until last week, and it bumped back up, right? By over 200 properties, where we actually had a decline from this week to this week the year before. So maybe people are, maybe the shutdown being relaxed a little bit is causing people to pick up their activity a little bit. We'd have to watch how that progresses over the next couple weeks, right? I've heard of people getting tired of coronavirus, meaning they somehow care less about getting sick or taking risks or something, right? New back on the market. This is interesting. So it looks like people got a little scared at the beginning of the month, and then they started putting their homes back on the market. And then we have not overwhelmingly telling statistics over here. New back on the market. On hold. On hold is essentially when it's an active listing and they change the status to essentially say no one's allowed in the home until it goes back active. The home's not under contract. They don't want to withdraw the home. And so in a certain respect, you probably should look at on holds and withdrawns similarly if you're going to do a year-over-year comparison. And obviously we see that picking up towards the very end of March, okay, as you would expect. New closed listings. This is for condos and townhomes, so be careful to look for that. Substantial decreases during the last 2 weeks, right? So remember that if these deals were closing here, they were probably going under contract here. So right around the time that they started talking about enhanced social distancing and shutting down office buildings and these kind of things, there was probably a very big drop off, and that led to a fewer number of closings right here. That makes sense?
Correct.
My
Correct.
suspicion is we're going to see even more of that, because these deals that went under contract, I'm sorry, these deals that closed here, they went under contract when we were in like Dallas or Family Union, when no one was worried about anything, right? So you can actually see a little bit of increase over these couple weeks here, right? So the ones that these are, remember, are closing. So a month before this, in mid-February, no one seemed to be worried about anything, and you could argue that the market was actually stronger in 2020 than it was about to be stronger in 2020 than it was in 2019. And then you see what happened after they started shutting things down. I would suspect that this is going to continue. New active listings for condos and townhomes. It looks like you don't have much of a difference in the new listings, yet you don't see so much. It's hard to tell right now because there's a month in between contract and close generally. But it looks like there is probably going to be a bit of a drop off here very soon, at least in closings, which we just saw in the previous slide. But there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of difference in the number of new listings. Remember, we're still in the spring market, right? So people have been waiting for this time to sell. Increases early, meaning it was about to be a stronger market, and now we're having a little bit of a fall off. Not a ton though. New withdrawn listings, I would say nothing overly significant right here. Larger increases during week 3 and 4, right? When people, started shutting down their homes, and now they are, the ones that were willing to sell are less likely to withdraw their homes, but they are withdrawing their homes at a more impressive clip than the year before, except for these first 2 weeks when no one was worried about anything. Okay, these are, again, the mirror image slides for condos and townhomes. So condos and townhomes here, this is new pendings and active under contract. So we seem to be having roughly the same number of listings as we just saw, but the number of pendings, this is the slide I was looking for, has gone down. And then this, of course, will impact the number of closings that we see as the next couple weeks are sent out to us. So you can see decreased overall after week 1. Week 1 was going to be, again, all the signs were pointing to a strong spring season. And then what we see here is they started to fall off, right? And then in week, 5, 54% less, then 54% less, then 52% less, then 39% or 37% less. So obviously, right as the buildings were closing and businesses were closing, and right around the time they did order the shelter in place, you had fewer people going under contract. Okay. Now, I do think that it's just as a little bit of a sidebar. Every time there's a Chartmasters report that is sent out, I would block off half an hour to study it. Okay. Because if you can rattle off statistics like this, like, people will think 2 + 2 is 5 if you tell them it is, right? Like, if you're like, hey, if you overprice your home and you have to do a price reduction, you're going to sell for 93.1% of list price in 111 days. However, if you price the home properly at the beginning and you can sell without a price reduction, you're going to sell for 99.3% of list price in an average of 18 days. I just have one simple question for you, sir. Which option sounds more attractive to you? Right? So you rattle off stuff like that, they're like, where do I sign? Right? Because no one is saying that kind of stuff. No one has this type of material where you can say, there's a, high C's, high S's, mostly high C's are going to eat this stuff up, right? If you're getting into a conversation with an engineer or an attorney, they might want to look at every single number on this page. But if you pulled this out in front of an artist, they're like, don't show that to me. I trust you. I'm sure you're a smart guy. I'm sure you've reviewed it. Now, what should I know? Right? They'd love to know you have the stack of it, the pictures and all that. Don't you dare pull that out. Say, hey, if you want to look at anything, it's right over here. I've already studied it. And say, yeah, don't pull that out. Keep that over there, please. Right? They're like, ooh, colors. Right? But they're not paying attention to any of the numbers. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. That's why you also have to really start to understand personality profiles based on how people speak and how people dress. I mean, I hate to say it, but how people dress, how people speak, what kind of questions they ask, where they go to when you let them in the door. You know, like sometimes you let a couple in the door and the wife goes to the family room and sees if the kitchen opens to the family room and the husband goes out to the backyard. Pay attention, right? The husband cares about the backyard. Ask him some questions about it. The wife cares about some other parts of the house. Ask her some questions about it. Okay. That way, if she says, I love the fact that the kitchen opens to the family room, I really want that in my next house. Well, unfortunately, that's not a category that you can search by. However, they have open floor plan, but you never know what somebody's going to call an open floor plan. But you can look at that stuff in the pictures clearly. And if she says she's not going to buy a home without an open family room, don't bring her to a home with without an open family room. See what I'm saying? All right, I'm off my soapbox. Does this make sense, guys?
Yep.
Yes.
It does. Again, this is the regions 13 and 14.
No,
both?
I'm sorry. This is all of Metro Atlanta. So this is going to go down to include like Stockbridge, McDonough, Noonan, West Cobb. It's going to go up towards like north. What's north of Forsyth? Like
Dawson,
like it's way
even
up.
Lumpkin.
Lumpkin County.
Oh, wow.
White.
Hall.
And there are some unique slides in there for a couple of those counties that are like way out there. Okay. It's all relative. I've never even been to Lumpkin County probably. Okay. New back on the market listings. Again, you can see it. To me, this isn't overwhelmingly telling, right? If you look on the left, these are, what's the difference between 40 and 70? It's not that, it doesn't tell me a whole lot, to be honest, right? New on hold listings, you're starting to see a lot more. Obviously, you had a huge jump, and now it's starting to decline a little bit more.
So, Bill, I had a question on the back of the market. Would that be a situation, say, for example, when someone was pre-approved and then because of COVID, the stipulations regarding their loan changed? Is that why the back of the market would be so high right about now?
Let's actually back up and ask one question before that, which is, I guess there's two ways to explain back on the market, right? One is a home that was under contract that came back on the market, or one that was previously on hold or something that came back on the market. Which do we know which one it is?
Right.
Let's see if he makes that distinction up here. Does anyone know the answer to that?
No.
Back on the market and hold status were not tracked or kept in our data, so historical comparisons are not applicable. Yeah, I don't see that here. So do you see what the difference in the idea would be?
Yeah, I see what the difference in the idea is.
I would, if I was to
curious.
guess, I would say that back on the market is homes that were pending. And then
The only reason I ask is because I had a situation where I had a client, it was under agreement. And they decided because of COVID not to purchase, which would have put the house back on the market. And then I'm working with a buyer now who we were looking at a house and it went under agreement with another agent. And now it's back on the market. And who knows why. So I was just curious as to what their definition of back on the market is, because the numbers are increasing and it is during the COVID time. So I didn't know if it was related to COVID or if it was just a situation where, somebody just said, I got cold feet, I don't want the house.
Oh, both of those would probably be included. So
Okay.
COVID is clearly going to have an impact. I think the difference is, and actually the more I think about it, the more I don't think it really makes a difference, or it might be both, which is back on the market is probably two things. It's homes that were previously under a different status, whether it be pending or hold, and then are new to the market again. So it would make sense that, well, actually those kind of counter each other out, right? Because if I just found out that my office building is closing, then I'm probably not going to take my home from hold to active. That gets a different result than if I had a contract and now it's active again. You see what I'm saying? I will message Chuck about that. I'm not 100% sure about that, to be honest.
Thanks.
Okay. I could see how yeah, before I go too far in the weeds with that, let me just check in with him. New on hold listings, obviously we got a bunch of people that came back on the market, or I'm sorry, that decided to pull their home off the market or hold it, if you will, and that's starting to decrease a little bit, but you're still substantially higher than you were at the very beginning of the April, or very beginning of March, I mean. He says in here that he's working on like a kind of a bit of a different way to present this. These are detached properties, new actives, by price range, by week. Okay, so I think this is pretty difficult to read if you ask me. But from left to right on each of these price ranges, starting is the very first week of March, and then the red is the very last week that ended on the 25th. So, you know, hardly anything's happening in the negative one or less than 100,000. But if we look in these areas where we primarily work, right, you tended to see a higher number of actives that took you until, like, let's say middle of the month, or I'm sorry, beginning of April, and then they started to decrease a little bit, as you would expect when the shelter in place happened. So a lot of them you're seeing kind of a bit of a triangle here. See that? But in almost all of these, you can see in this most recent week, you're starting to see a little pop. See that? See how the red is starting to creep back up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So that tells us that, you know, maybe they have the coronavirus fatigue, or because the government is opening a variety of places, they feel like they may as well just go ahead and try. Right.
And they're all kind of within the same range, like the 4 to 499, it's 128, 137, 159, 160, you know, it's in that 130 to 160 range every week.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
So it's
So
like,
you're saying that, number one, there's not a huge difference in these numbers.
yeah,
And the shapes are relatively similar too. So
yeah.
you're not seeing a huge outlier in terms of price range.
It's really splitting hairs. I mean, yeah, I mean the 100K range has it's not much of a you know, the swing between low end and high end is really not really significant.
I don't think you're looking at too much of a swing between any of these.
No, right. I mean, Kathy's right.
And
Yeah.
Here's another confusing part of this is I would never bring this, like, I don't think there's a whole lot of point to this slide in terms of from the customer to the agent, because like whatever the market is doing, you want to keep your client centered on why they are asking for your help, right? Why are they trying to buy right now? What is the motivation behind that decision, and why are they trying to sell now? So if they get caught up in, well, last week it went down by 3/8 of a point in Lilburn, so I'm not going to list my home in Woodstock in a completely different price range, right? It's like at some point, the more data you feed them, the more scared they get and the more they question you, right? So I would just say, like, there doesn't appear to be a huge significance in number of new active listings. If anything, it's falling a little bit, and it looks like it might be heading back up. Like the last 2 weeks have gone up. I'm sorry, the last 2 weeks have started to go back up again. Honestly, I think people are tired of COVID, and they're so tired of COVID that they're taking risks that they would not have taken 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
Right. I was at a closing today. No one's wearing masks. No one's wearing gloves. I'm not saying that stuff's necessary. I'm just saying it looks a lot different than it did when I went out 3 weeks ago.
But nobody shook hands.
No.
We're all going to start bowing to each other.
Yeah. I was talking to the seller, and my daughter kept coming over and saying, 6 feet, 6 feet.
Oh my gosh.
All right. New pending and under contracts. Okay.
Look at that. And the million to 1.49.
Forget about it.
Wow.
Forget about it. That's what I was about to point out. So here, you don't see a whole lot of difference in, I mean, yes, you see some lower just simply because there's less homes that are that expensive, right?
Right.
But look at the ones that I would say that's significantly different, right? So for example, in this last week, the red, there was 26 new listings. See that? 26 new actives at 1.5 and higher, and only 6 went under contract. So if you've got a luxury type client, you guys are going to be partners for a while, most likely.
Yeah.
Right. The action is down here. So I've spoken to agents recently that, they have a desire to get into the luxury market. Well, so does everybody.
Not
and
me.
With all due respect, I would rather be here right now because that's where the action is. And these people can sell in a seller's market and go steal a house over here.
With the low rates and all, yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's a very small percentage of the public can afford $1 million home, but if I could afford 900 and not $1 million, I'd be talking to every one of these people, slinging offers at them left and right.
Oh, you know what? I've jumped down to I'm on my own screen because I can't see. I like to see those numbers and I can't see them on your screen. So I'd gone down to new pending and actives, but 26 went on the market, 12 went under contract. I was already down at the next one. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, we're looking at, you're looking at 1 to 1.5, which is 27 new listings and 12 under contract.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you saying that's a lot?
Well, I mean, I'm saying that's good. It started off the first week down on the active under contract and pending. It started out 20, 16, 23, 6, 8, 7, 5, 12.
Yeah, it just popped up.
Yeah.
So that would indicate, like I said, maybe people are getting tired and they say, oh, they're opening up let's go get a tattoo and buy $1 million house, right?
Yeah.
So
in that order.
Look back at this video, they're gonna be like, what in the hell are you doing? I agree. And you're starting to see a bit of a pop in every single price range, just about, right? So I think that people are they've just grown tired of this. And it appears like the market is I don't want to say heating up, but buyers seem to be out there a little bit more in the last 2 weeks. Okay.
Yep.
New withdrawn listings, I don't think there's a whole lot of significance right here. I think if you're not willing to sell your home right now, you've already withdrawn the home. You withdrew it sometime in the last 3 weeks, let's say. And whenever you happen to feel comfortable, you'll put it back on the market. And if somebody is not comfortable selling their home, it won't appear on the market clearly. So I think the whole hold thing, withdrawn thing, I think we can kind of get caught up in that. The important thing is there doesn't seem to be anything beyond the obvious. When they told us that we had to stay in our homes, fewer people were out there buying homes. And as a result, fewer people were listing homes. I think that's the largest takeaway, which is not particularly significant. Okay. New closed listings, right? As you can see, we're here in this, as we go further or into more recent time, we're seeing less closings, but they peaked out when people were going under contract in mid-February to close in mid-March. And now they're falling a little bit. However, you can see the same thing is happening with detached residents with closings as they're now starting to pop back up. So now they say that would indicate that people started looking a little bit more seriously. I wonder if they had a pop back in maybe we'll see that. No.
So that slide, Bill, looks like it's taking that very, very first slide we did and taking it to like another level of detail, by
price.
By levels, the ones, the twos, the threes, and so on.
Yeah.
By price. Exactly. That's exactly what they're doing. My hunch is that if we started to see a little pop at this very last week for closings, did we see a similar pop for pendings at the end of March? So
Let's go back.
yeah, so that would be what? Pendings plus actives for detached. Where is that slide? Pendings plus actives. So then we would expect there to be a little bit of a pop a month ago, which is essentially the
921.
the height of all of these shapes, right? And now what we would expect is over the course of the next 3 weeks, the closings will probably slowly decline, and then most likely the closings will pop again because of these red lines. See that?
Yeah.
Again, it's very important that you're able to like philosophically understand this, because the more you study this stuff, the wiser of an agent you'll be, and the much more impressive of the words that come out of your mouth will be when you're presenting to your buyers and sellers. Okay. What page were we on? I want to try to move quickly through this. So again, new back on the market. I don't think that there's a whole lot of significant stuff here. Every number is basically less than, oh, this is interesting. Let's say, for example, that new back on the market is that they were under contract and now they're back active, right?
Yeah.
Most of that, it looked like most of the higher end deals seem to be staying under contract.
Right.
Right. And that might make sense because those people, may be a bit more financially stable, or they're, maybe they have supervisory roles that are still there, and the the people that are in that, let's say, $200,000 to $400,000 price range, maybe they don't have as much responsibility, or their pay isn't as high, or obviously their pay isn't as high. And so they were a bit more concerned, and they may likely have stayed, or they may have left their contract. So interestingly enough, you see that it looks like a number of the higher end stuff stayed under contract. Do you guys follow that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, on this particular slide, Bill, these are condos and townhomes too.
Yeah,
so
I saw that. Yeah. I
that may
wonder,
be what-
so what slide would that be? That would be back on the market listings for single family homes. Let's see if we can find that one really fast.
Yeah.
What page is that on?
It is, what page is this? 7. But it doesn't break it down into.
Yeah. Right.
Oh wait, no, I was looking at the wrong thing.
Oh,
That
yeah,
was,
the
I
point
went
we're trying to
to-
make is based on price range, and that doesn't
Right.
have a.
yeah. So that would have been closer to the.
Oh, I
to
see.
where we were.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Some of this stuff, I mean,
Yeah, there it is.
so yeah, maybe it's in that summary report. Let's go look at that. Okay. Oh, okay. Here's the answer to our question.
Okay.
Total back on the market, BOM, is the sum of from pending, from AUC, from withdrawn, from expired, from hold, from closed. See that?
Yeah.
So with detached, that's what I was saying. Maybe they just added them all together. Okay. So you see almost half of the listings that went back on market were pending. Actually, 3/4 of them were pending. Only, what would that be? About 20% of them came from hold. I can't explain the from closed. I don't know how that works. Thank God that's not my house. Percentage on back on the market listings. I don't know where that comes from. Oh, percentage of the ones that were. No, that doesn't make sense. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it does.
This is the percentage. 580 over 1221 is 47%. I follow that. Okay, and this is condo and townhome. Okay, so you actually don't see a huge difference in what their status was versus from what it was prior to becoming back active. Okay, price reduction days on the market. Let's see, I haven't looked at this one before. So this separates it into condo and townhomes and detached, right? You're not seeing a significant difference between this number and that number, that number and that number, right? Median days on the market, still, 18 for detached and 22 for condos. Those are the ones that closed in April. Active, under contract, and pending. It's not too much of a difference,
No.
right? 43 versus 52, right? And then you just take the average of those. So that's like 47 days. Is that right? Oh, no. I'm sorry. Let's call it 21 and a half. And
I'm sorry.
23
No,
or 24.
What is,
It's not a whole lot different than these.
I don't understand this slide. I'm sorry. What is it they're tracking
I
here?
think I'm trying to understand it out loud.
Oh, okay, thank you.
It's the price reduction and the days on the market. So,
Okay, so the ones that closed in April, right? They, 27.9% of the detached properties that closed in April had a price reduction, and they were on the market for a median days of 18. Okay. Now, the active properties on the market when this was published as of the 25th, there is that number on the market. 33% of them had already had a price reduction, and the average days on the market were 54.
So, Bill, I have a question. I just need clarity because I'm looking at it differently. Maybe you can help me. So the way that I see it is that the total number of listings, and then it says number of price reductions per the active listings, and then the percent of price reduction was the 33.1%. Is that the percent of price reduction overall, or is that the percent of price reduction per home? Does that make sense?
No. Yes, it does. The answer to that certainly is what 33.1 represents is
right. Is that per reduction per home, or is that per reduction on the total? Okay.
No, that's
properties.
the percentage of active listings today
on all the properties.
Yes, that have already had a price reduction.
Right. So the 33% wasn't the amount of reduction that particular home said. Okay. Because it says percentage of price reduction. So I was trying to figure out, are they talking percentage that it was reduced per house or is it total? That's what I was asking.
Total. That's certainly total.
Yeah, because if you divide 3743 by 11,298, it's 33.1.
Right. So what we're seeing here is the ones that went active, under contract, and pending, essentially the same number, just a couple of days higher than what happened the previous month. Right. Then you got these hold and back on the markets that confuse everything. Coming soon is not applicable. Expired. 50% of the homes that expired after 152 days and had a price reduction.
Wow.
So shame on the real estate agent that allowed the home to expire without even trying a price reduction.
Yeah, that one stood out to me, and the one above, 30.1%, like 1/3 of the back on market listings have price drops.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is it's not a whole lot different than this number.
Yeah.
Off of the actives, that's true.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not a whole lot different than the hold percentages. So basically, it's almost as if you didn't have that you had a price reduction, right? So for example, if 33% of the actives had a price reduction, and 32% of the holds had a price reduction, and 30% of the back on the markets had a price reduction, that's not too much of a difference.
So it's a par from the course, huh?
That's what I would say, yeah.
Yeah, I get your point.
Right. So then we move over to condos and townhomes, and we see that it doesn't seem to be having, again, it doesn't seem to be having that much of a difference.
Low to
If
mid
anything,
20s.
the sellers and the listing agents are pricing the condos and townhomes better.
It could be, yeah.
Right. Again, some of this stuff is, it's a lot. And with all due respect to it, it's quite confusing. The fact of the matter is you're looking a seller in the face that has a goal. And can you help the seller get it done? Confusing him with, well, 33% of the active listings, blah, 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 it just paralyzes them. So this is good for you guys to internalize, but you got to be careful on what you share with a client. You don't want to overwhelm the crap out of them. I can
correct.
tell you the story of the market in one slide.
Hey, Bill.
Yeah,
So can we role play here a minute?
sure.
And use
I hope
this,
so.
using this slide? Well, I don't know. I really don't think I should price my house that low because, you know, I just think it's worth more money than that.
Okay, so that I want to, can I pause that really fast? Because that's the slide that I want to show you. And let's just finish this, the next page or two. Then I'll bring up the Chartmasters page that I think tells the entire story of the market in one page.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Okay,
Perfect.
not the entire story, but it can deal with just about any objection you have, particularly the one you just brought up. Okay. Okay. Oh, that is the last slide.
Okay.
All right.
There's a one slide kind of master executive summary looking kind of slide.
Oh, hang on. Well, that was page 28 we were just looking at. I don't see that. Is that page 28?
I don't know. I think it was. It's not up anymore.
All right. I'm going to look at, hang on. This is going to take me just a second to go grab it. Actually, while I'm doing that, I can show you my screen so you can see exactly how to do it. That'd be a good idea. Don't judge me on how many on how many windows I have up here. I usually have 3 screens. I'm not used to this like one little tiny screen thing.
I'm so happy to see that, Bill, because that's what my computer looks like.
Mine too.
All right, so this is our MyKW homepage. We go to MyKW or My Market Center intranet. Okay, and then, oops, hang on. Whoa. Okay, then we go to Associates. Is that right? No.
No, Market Center documents.
You're right. You're right. Market Center and then Documents. And click on Documents down here. And you're going to go to Chartmasters, Market Statistics. And you can go back, I think they have 4 years on here. So all the way back to third quarter of 2016. The monthly market overviews are here, and the weekly status reports for the last 6 weeks are there. I'm just going to pull up this slide real fast. Quarter detached, and I'm going to do the quarterly report. Let me see how quickly I can find it. Okay, it's the chart. It's the what they call the game board slide. You know what I'm talking about, Kathy and Jan?
Yeah.
So.
Which one are you in? The Chartmaster quarterly reports?
Yes.
Or the MMO?
I'm in the quarterly reports. The MMO doesn't have this stat. hang on. Okay. This one is the very confusing version. This talks about like the previously listed or wrong agent or whatever. This slide is really important. Okay, 34% of listings are still expiring. So even though everyone thinks it's a hot market, forget about coronavirus for a second. A third of the sellers are still not selling. So don't get crazy with the price. Okay, especially on the high end. See this? Okay, let me see if I can. Do they have that? Hang on. All right, let's go the other way. I could talk about this stuff all day, so I know we're only 15 minutes over time. Okay, here is the slide. Okay.
Putting it all together, that one.
Yep. Okay, an average of 100 finalized listings. Okay, this is across all price ranges. If you look at this next slide, see where it has up here, enter your area. If we had the PowerPoint one, we could enter, and you also have to have Microsoft Office or Excel on your page because it uses Excel to calculate it. But you can put in the price range and the area, and it'll spit out the numbers here. Okay, this is just overall for 100 listings in the market. 34 of them, like I just suggested, will not sell. They will fail to sell. Okay, that is almost always going to be an expired, and it could also be withdrawn. Okay, the other 66 homes are going to sell. 35 of them are not going to need a price reduction. 31 of them will. Okay, that 31 of the 66 represents 47%. Not a huge difference there. I don't think that's too significant. This very significant part is this. If your home is fortunate enough to be one of the 2/3 of the ones that sell, if you had to have a price reduction to sell it, you're going to be at 92.6% of the original listing price. And it's going to take you 89 days to sell. If you and your agent were able to price your home correctly on day one, then you will be of the 35% of that market's new listings that actually sell without a new price reduction. And then therefore you will sell for 99.3% of original asking price in 13 days. Okay. Now you can use other slides to go in and specify the area and the price range because they might tweak it based on a variety of marketplaces. But go ahead and ask me that same question, Jan.
Hi, Bill. I really understand how you're what you say, but I really think my home's worth more than that, and I really don't think I should price it that low.
Okay, so I'm suggesting a price of $325. What is the price that you think is more? I'm sorry, I'm suggesting a price of $300. What is the number that you're thinking?
Well, I just really think it's worth $325.
Okay. And so we've also taken a few minutes to review the comparables. And we have a couple of sales that are, actually most of the sales are in that 290 to 300 neighborhood. And we have one outlier, but they have a really enormous backyard and that finished basement that we talked about. They sold for 305. So can you share with me any evidence that I could use to share with the future buyers and the future buyers agents to support your 325 price?
Well, I updated my house 10 years ago, and the bathrooms are updated and everything. I did a full renovation 10 years ago.
Okay. And well, I understand that. I've certainly factored that into my recommendation. Jan, one thing I want to share with you is, a buyer or a seller doesn't have to sell their home once. They actually have to sell it twice. Okay, may I explain?
Sure.
Okay, so we put the home on the market. We make it look as we take professional pictures. It looks fantastic online. Once they walk in, they feel at home, right? And a buyer is going to decide if they want to buy that home, and they're going to do the same research that we're doing to determine if they're willing to pay your price, right? And they're going to determine what they believe the market value is, and that's what they're going to start with when they begin to negotiate with you if you're lucky to be one of the 2/3 of owners that even get that far. Okay. So even if they, by chance, are willing to spend beyond what the evidence would support, more than likely they're going to be getting a mortgage, and the lender is going to send out their own appraiser to do, again, the same analysis. And they're going to be looking for sales that support the amount of money that a buyer might be willing to pay. And what concerns me is that I'm not going to be able to share many sales with them.
Well, I know that maybe my house is not worth the 325 that one was, but it's worth at least 315. And I think if I price it at 325, that gives us room to negotiate.
Okay. So Jan, I want you to look at this diagram with me really fast, because I've got a few other diagrams I can point out to you. So number one is, if you, first of all, 34% of properties that are listed right now will not sell. And then if you combine that with the 31% of the properties that are listed that only sell after reduction in price, that means that 65 out of every 100 listings that you see are essentially overpriced. And half of those will not sell, and half of them will sell, but only after a price reduction. What I find really interesting, though, Jan, is that there's a significant difference, almost 7%, between the amount of money that a buyer or that a seller will receive in comparison to their original list price, and whether they have to reduce the price or not. There's also a significant amount of time difference. So would you prefer to make your bed 89 times before the thing is sold, or 13 times before the thing is sold?
Oh, you do have a point about the bed making. I've had my
And
homes
clean up
on
the
the market
kitchen,
before.
and make all the beds, and put away all the toys, and clean the toilets.
And you're sure, Alex, stop laughing. Okay, I gotcha.
Okay, so actually, Jan, what's interesting is that this is percentage-wise, so we're talking over $20,000 in difference. And what I find really interesting, let's do this little exercise here. I have this other slide. Let's just pretend the numbers are correct. Okay, so we're at 425 and 400 here. Let's say it's 300 and 325. Is if the seller wants to be at, let's call it 325, and you would pull the numbers in specifically, you got to do this ahead of time. Because the math may not work out, and you need to have the specific numbers based on the price range we're talking about, and you need to have asked the right pre-qualification questions ahead of time to understand that there may be a bit of a pricing issue, right? That's when you ask the pre-qualification questions before you go out to listing appointment. That is, what is the lowest you would consider selling your home for? Or if what do you think the market value of your property is? And if they say 450 and all the data says 375, you're going to talk about price at that appointment. You better believe it, right? So you got to know what's coming, right?
Okay.
So if you ask the question, hey, have you ever considered selling the home on your own? And they say, no way, I know I need to hire a professional for that. Then you're probably not going to have too many commission issues. But if they say, yeah, this will be, I've sold every other home myself, and I think realtors are overpaid. Well, you better practice your objection if you even want to go on that appointment. Okay. So Jan, let's go back to this slide here. And I looked up our data, which were supplied exclusively by Keller Williams, by the way. And our coach and our leader and our leadership team pour into us every month to make sure that we know everything that's going on in the marketplace. And I just felt it was appropriate to share this stuff with you. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And if they start laughing, that's when you push the paperwork at them. Okay, sign there. I'm right. Sign. Okay. So 425. If you need a price reduction in order to sell, you're going to sell for 91% of the list price, which is 385 and 156 days on the market. If you allow me to price where I want to price at 400, you're going to sell it without the need of a price reduction, which means you're going to get 99% of sticker price, sell it for 396, which is $8,000 more, and in less than 10% of the number of days on the market. Follow me? So even though we listed the home for $25,000 less, and we have a likely sales price difference of almost $8,000, fewer days on the market, which is almost 5 months of carrying cost, which in my estimation, that's another $9,000, right? Because you got monthly carrying cost, 2,100 times 5, right?
Right.
I see taking my recommendation for sales price saving you $18,000. Jan, if I was able to save you $18,000 by using my market expertise to price the home correctly on day one, when the market activity is the highest, and would you like to see a slide about that? Right, I'll show you a slide about that. Do you think that would be in your best interest?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Let me also explain something else to you. Let's say, for example, the home was worth $315, and there was a buyer that was out there that was willing to pay $315 for the home. Okay, I would say it's basically impossible to underprice a home. And here's what I mean by that. Once the home is listed, it's going to be on every freaking website in the entire world. Okay, thousands and thousands and thousands. And everyone that is even remotely interested in your home will know. Okay, that's the power of the internet. What we see here is in the price range we're discussing, 20% of properties are going to sell at list price or above list price, which tells me that the homes are priced, that there's multiple offers most likely, right? Which means you put the home on the market for 300, the market says, oh my gosh, that thing's worth 315, let's go all bid it up. And the most money that you get, right, when multiple suitors are giving you their offer, whoever is going to give you the best offer, that is the one person in the entire universe that is willing to pay you more than anyone else in the entire universe, right? So the 8 billion people in the world, you found the one that was willing to pay the most money for your home, and they think it's worth 312. So if we price it strategically at 300, we may get more, and we can see from here that that happens 20% of the time, right? And actually, as we go to 299, it's 31% of the time. So it's very likely that will happen, or it's possible it will happen. And if it doesn't happen, by the way, what we know is that we had the right price, right? So these reports have summary pages and all kinds of stuff like that. There's a slide in here that has a graph which shows, it's really kind of, I like the way he creates it. It shows that the activity at the very beginning of the listing period is significant, and then it falls off drastically as additional time on the market happens, which would be even more support for my argument a second ago, which is we don't want to have the most eyes looking at the property when it's overpriced. We want the most eyes looking at the property. Here it is. Right here. Number of homes sold drastically falls off after like week 3 and continues to decline for a whole year. Okay. Here's the slide on that. Initial overpricing consequences. Lower price, longer time. Okay. You can see here it's completely supported by stats. The longer the home is on the market, the lower percentage of the original list price they're going to get. Okay. And here it is, a graph of price reduction on percentage of price reduction. Okay, was this helpful?
Yes, very much so. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Bill.
They're
Yeah.
very helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, a lot of it can be very confusing, and you can get in the weeds very easy on it. The main thing to focus on is these are your tools of success. Okay. It's kind of like the first comparison that came into my mind was, let's say you're a stockbroker, but you never look at the market. Right. That seems ridiculous, right? Right. So if you're a stockbroker, you're looking at, the NASDAQ and the S&P 500, and you're looking at betas and alphas and, volumes and candles and all kinds of stuff, right? We should be taking our business just as seriously. So this is like our newspaper, essentially, right? This is the stuff that's going on. However, just because it's, raining, if you will, that doesn't mean your motivation changes. You still got to go to work. You still got to pick up your kids from school, right? So life goes on. People still have the same issues, same motivations for moving, buying, selling, divorcing, birthing, dying. It's all the same, right? And so we have to find the motivated and then explain to them how to be as successful as possible in the market that we find ourselves in. Okay. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to stop the recording really fast and then start it again for the scripts, and we'll do a real quick script one.